we marked 1947 by how many months after Roswell, you understand. That was in July. This was in that's Friedman time.
That's right.
Anyway, people may not realize it. That was not made public. It was kept secret that he had flown faster than the speed of sound with a rocket-powered airplane. That was a great development, and they developed new shapes for airplanes. The whole point is that progress comes from doing things differently in an unpredictable way. Don't look to the future by extrapolating the past. See what's new that we can use, and it'll take some work, because the first model of the new isn't going to be as good as the last model of the old. You haven't spent a lot of money or time or people's effort on it. But what's the potential? And so there are all kinds of developments in aviation. And, you know, it's kind of funny. If you look at the Apollo command module, and in my book, Flying Saucers and Science, there's a picture of me with my hand on the command module. And, you know, when I stood there and NASA took the picture, I was giving a talk to NASA people. They wouldn't let the North American aviation people into my talk for some reason. Anyway, here's this round, blunt body. Now, the X-15, which broke the sound barrier, was a pointy-nosed, sharp-wing, rocket-powered aircraft. And that's what I thought a high-speed aircraft, something moving at high speed in the atmosphere, had to look like. And what's the Apollo command module look like? A darn old flying saucers. It's a round, blunt body. It's an entirely different approach to dealing with the problem of high-speed flight in the atmosphere. And that's part of the message of the book here is, especially in technology. I mean, the resistance to television. Who would sit and look at a box with a picture on it, you know? What good's a telephone? Who are you going to call? You know, you don't need computers at home. Who would want a computer at home? What for? Address book? Recipes? Come on. IBM fought that, too, and almost caused the demise of the company. So everywhere you look, resistance.
I mean, years ago, I worked as a drafter, and I, pen or pencil and paper, and it was me and my paper. And when everything changed to computer-aided design, I was like, I don't even want to go into this field, because who would want to sit in front of a computer 8 hours a day?
Think 12.
I don't know. I do that all the time now.
There was a lot of resistance.
There's always
during
resistance.
The development of the computer. I was at the University of New Hampshire when we first started to discuss the use of computers, and the philosophy department was discussing how we would become a society of technocrats, and that no one would be a thinking kind of person, that this was going to cause the demise of our society. And
but see, they didn't realize that you would have to spend so many hours trying to figure out what's wrong with your computer when something hiccups, that you just have a whole different kind of education.
Well, yeah, and look at the Internet. There was resistance to that, too. Who would ever dream that you could link literally billions of people around the planet? The laser is only 50 years old. And certainly the guys who discovered would be a better word, the laser, weren't thinking about what all the things we do. And the Internet's one of them, where you use optical information, signals going down a glass pipe, if you will, instead of radio. Entirely different approach, and yet lasers are all over the place doing all kinds of things. And, nuclear energy. Both Lord Rutherford, one of the great scientists of the last century, and Albert Einstein, generally conceded to be the greatest scientist of the last century, said, well, there was no way you could get anything useful out of the fact that, yes, E equals MC squared, energy equals, and energy and mass are sort of convertible if you're smart. Now, one of the reasons was they had no idea of a nuclear chain reaction, partly because the neutron wasn't even discovered until 1932. Now, we've all been made out of neutrons for a very long time. Everything's got neutrons in it just about, but we didn't even know it existed. And so it's new directions. And there's another aspect of arrogance. General Groves, who was in charge of the Manhattan Project to develop atomic bombs, only spent $2 billion in 1942 money. There's another hallmark of sometimes it takes a lot of time, money, effort. 60,000 people were involved at one time or another to develop a new technology. And one of the reasons the astronomers fought the idea of space travel, nobody would spend the money. What good would it do? It's nice if you know a hurricane is coming and if you use GPS and all the other stuff that take advantage of space. But, and the science that's benefited the most from space is astronomy. Learn more new astronomical facts, data, picture of the universe than in any other field. But the astronomers fought it all over the place. Silly way to spend money. Build better astronomers' equipment. We did.
One of the things that you talked about a little earlier was the reticence of the military of embracing new technology. But it seems like other than the military are the people that tend to spend the money on the research and development, it almost seems like an oxymoron or contrary terms, because they want the new technology to outsmart the other guy's technology. Like radar, they just kept changing it so that they could outsmart each other. And it just doesn't make sense that they would be hesitant to embracing something that would be useful, potentially useful.
They weren't sure it would work, and there were a lot of people in positions of authority and power and spending money that were resistant to the new. And as a matter of fact, one of the strange things is that General Groves, in charge of the Manhattan Project, spending $2 billion, when asked in 1947, how soon would the Russians have nuclear weapons? At least 8 years, he said, because they don't have the benefits of our free and open and technological society. In effect, he was saying they're a bunch of dumb peasants. It was quite a shock to the American ego when, in 1949, August, the Russians exploded their first atomic bomb. These dumb peasants, yes, they had some help from spies. They also had the biggest cyclotron in Europe before the war, and they had slave labor to use and a few other things. But one of the saddest documents I've ever read, I've been to 20 archives, and there was one in about 1951 from the National Security Council saying that the Russians had made more progress in the development of nuclear weapons and methods for delivering them in the past 18 months than had been expected for 8 years. That had serious consequences. We didn't have a radar net around the country because everybody knew the Russians couldn't fly any bombs to attack us. Boy, were they wrong. So, again, it's this point of it's not just an intellectual curiosity here, but there are implications. Look what Kathy found out about vaccination and smallpox. That'll turn your stomach. And
let's talk about that.
Kathy,
okay.
Yeah.
Sure,
he just opened the door right there, so let's just walk through.
Okay. Well,
because vaccinations they're a pretty hot topic, with swine flu and, all of these different vaccines that they want you to take now where, I don't know about you, but you ain't sticking that stuff in my body.
I've had my vaccinations for H1N1 and a couple of other things, and the flu vaccine every year. And I'm healthy. I've never spent overnight in a hospital. I'm a lot older than you are.
Well, I think back in the day I would be a little bit less concerned. Now, I guess I just don't trust the government enough.
I can't imagine why.
I don't know why. They don't do stuff like that in Canada.